Hi everyone and welcome back. It's me again, Ian, with more Audi TT Mk2 fixes, mods and upgrades. In this video, I'm going to be going inside the cabin again now that most of the exterior upgrades and mods have been done, like the wheels upgrade. They look fantastic, these new speed bronze lightweight satin wheels, and also the 17Z Brembo upgrades. All the exterior stuff has been done for now. So we're going to be moving into the cabin to install TTRS or R8 door handles, along with wiring up the interior lighting mod. So this is the unit that you can get from the TTRS or R8. I'll put the part numbers down in the description below. And this is just showing you the LED light units that I'll be upgrading later on in the video. But first up is to remove your door trims. You'll probably notice that I'm only removing 2 screws here, as I've already removed and have kept off the little pop fasteners that are usually in the door. This is just so it's easier for me to install and remove the door plenty of times, as I know I'll be adding and removing and testing different components before I permanently add the pop fixtures back on. This is the 32-pin grey clip that is fastened onto the door module. Now you're going to want to get familiar with this and how to open it up if you're going to be doing this modification. There's a simple little tab that you've got to lift up, and then the white unit then slides out. Here I'm starting to remove the door handles. There are, I think, 4 or 5 little T10 Torx screws. Now that they're removed, here's a really nice comparison between the two handles, where you can see the LED light unit there, which is like a fiber optic, and the slotted handle. You can just place the slotted handle right in there and it bolts right in without any modification. Now we've got to get access to the wiring to be able to give power to the little LED that you saw right at the beginning of the video. The felt layer here, or I don't know what to call it really, but it's like the sound insulation. You want to be really careful removing it, as it is fixed in the door card in a very specific manner, and you don't want to be damaging it while you're taking it off. So you can see I'm being quite careful here in noting how it's installed so that I remember how to put it back together, and also not to rip it apart. This is the 32 pin grey plug that plugs into the door control module. The pin out is from the top left that you can see here how I'm holding it. The top left is number 17, where the input for the wire to the LED goes. So this is the power wire. And then the other wire, which is the ground, can just be spliced into another ground wire that you've already got there in the door loom. Once the LED is plugged in, it's time to solder up the wires. So here's the brown wire, which is the ground that I've spliced into the existing wiring in there, and then all I've got to do is extend the power wire and cut, solder and heat shrink it together. Now that's done, it's time to reassemble the plug again. Simply slide that white housing back into the grey plug and then return the felt backing onto the door. Just remembering that it has to hook on very specifically, and it also tucks into specific areas where the popper sort of fasteners would go. Okay, so that's the hardware side of things done. You can pop the door card back on loosely, plug the grey plug back in, and now it's time to dive into some VCDS coding. So with the VCDS coding, this allows the power to get sent through to that pin. Just simply follow the steps outlined here, and if you're lucky enough, you might be able to just activate the checkbox. Otherwise, add the amount as stated in the yellow box there. So for my passenger side door, I was able to add the checkbox with the short coding helper, but for my driver's side door, I had to add the coding in manually. And here you can see that I was just testing the LED function out by adding the coding and then removing the coding and then adding it back in again. You want to repeat the same thing on the driver's side. There's only one extra step where you've got to remove the plug for the lock switches. Alright, now that's done, you can see I've got a red LED in this handle. And this is just an example of what it looks like at night where it's quite faint, and this is a common report that a lot of users that have done this retrofit are experiencing, where the lighting is not so bright, but you can see how it does dim with the interior dimmer controls. It looks quite nice, but I think it can be a lot better. And so in this next section, what we'll be looking at is upgrading the LED in that little light module. Before removing the LED from the plug, I'm just noting which side is negative or ground. Now comes the tricky part. So you want to pop that little front bit where the LED sits out, and then you've got to crack it open. So here I'm using a little razor blade, but I think it would have been easier to use a Stanley knife of sorts, just so I've got a better handle. The unit is quite small, so it can be a little bit fiddly here, so it does take patience. As you can see, I'm struggling a bit, but it'll be worth it in the end. So how did I know where to do this cut? When you look very closely at the unit, you'll definitely see there are two halves to it. And so I'm just scoring across the line that's already there and just ensuring that my blade is cutting all the way through the one side. Then I'll repeat it on the other side, and then the two halves come apart. Now we have to make sure we keep the polarity correct here. So remembering that I've marked which is the ground side. So just making note there, and we can see that on my replacement LED, the ground leg is the shorter one. So I'm just going to mark that with a marker just to ensure I can keep the polarity correct when soldering this leg back on. This next part is a little bit tricky just because the components are so small, but just be patient and make sure you get the lengths correct, and then we'll be able to test it out. Essentially what needs to be done is the legs underneath the resistors need to be removed from the OEM LEDs and then resoldered back onto your replacement LEDs legs. Now, I'm sorry if this is really frustrating to watch. It was extra frustrating to do as I wasn't at home to have all my clamps and usual tools and workbenches to work on. So I was kind of improvising here, but essentially this is what you want to end up with. So the same lengths will be required in the housing so that the plug section can fit in and lock. So how does it look in comparison with the OEM side? So here you can see one side is definitely a lot brighter and cooler than the other. So that's it, guys. Time to enjoy these upgraded TTRS slotted door handles with ambient LED lighting. Okay, so that's really it. There's not much to it. It just might take a little bit of time just because there is some wiring involved, and then you've got to do that little extra step of coating. So I really like these handles. They look really nice, they feel really nice, and in the evening you've got the extra little bit of ambient lighting as well. So I hope you enjoyed that video. If you like my channel, please remember to like and subscribe, hit that notification bell to get more updates. Until next time, see ya.